seated.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt, on the radio, on podcasts everywhere, on Facebook Live, on YouTube, and on talklawradio.com. Today we're talking about the race for San Antonio mayor, issues in the community, and we're talking about school choice and school vouchers in Texas. I'd like to continue that conversation if you want to call in at 210-308-8867, 210-308-8867 if you want to talk about who's running for mayor or what issues or policies you think should be prioritized, or if you want to talk about Project Marvel, the Spurs, or the Institute of Texan Cultures and the Texas Pavilion building, call me at 210-308-8867. In the meantime, I'm going to start talking about a court case that's been filed against a local business here in San Antonio that was started and built by a man named Ron Hermann. But because I'm licensed to practice law in Texas and the State Bar of Texas governs the attorney law license, I want to inform you about the law, but legal advice must be tailored to the specific circumstances of each case. And so don't take anything I say on the radio right now that's just general in nature and supposed to be educational as legal advice for your unique legal situation. You need to hire an attorney to do that, to give you specific legal advice. And of course, you know, Marquardt Law Firm sponsors the show, and attorneys at Marquardt Law Firm focus on business and estate law. So I'm going to talk to you about what I read in the San Antonio Express News about Ron Hermann. He's a longtime San Antonio businessman and rancher, and he built an empire for his family. But don't think that just because he had lots of money or lots of assets that you can't learn something from what's been published in the newspaper. And that takes me to another point where if you don't want your dirty laundry aired in the public forum, then you should really focus on how to reduce family conflict and maximize family harmony. I'm sure none of the people mentioned in this newspaper article want to be the focus of criticism and to have their good name dragged through the mud. But Ron Hermann, so this is sort of like his legacy that I'm going to tell you about here. Some of his assets included Columbia Industry, once the world's largest maker of bowling balls, known for its innovative plastic Columbia 300 line of balls. Ron Hermann also had Grady's Barbecue. It was a good place to go. I remember taking my mom and my grandmother and my family there back in the day. But I think all of their locations have closed. Ron Hermann also co-founded Western Beverages liquor store chain, also known as WB Liquors. And he was a charitable person. He gave generously, and he's donated millions of dollars to San Antonio area nonprofits under the Hermann Family Charitable Foundation and the Herman Zeller Foundation. From what I could discern from this newspaper article in the San Antonio Express News, Ron Hermann had children from his first marriage, David, Karen, Carol, and Helen. And then he was married to Karen, and through his marriage with Karen, there was Emily and Austin. And so the reason this lawsuit is coming about is because Ron Hermann, who I think is about 90 years old now, had passed on control of his assets to his son David, and Karen, the second wife, and Emily and Austin, children from the second marriage, have filed a lawsuit against David for mismanagement of assets. You'll have to look up the lawsuit to get all the details on that. Lawsuits are public, and so if they wanted to avoid conflict and preserve family harmony, they could have dealt with these issues outside of court, like through an mediator or through arbitration. But now that the lawsuit's public, the newspaper can publish what was in that lawsuit. And there's a lot of facts about the family and the assets that they have and the family members in that lawsuit petition. So this is part of the lesson that I want you to learn as you're doing your estate planning, is that estate planning begins when you're alive. Because at age 90, you might not want to be running things. You might not be good at running things. It may be difficult for you to run things the way that you used to run things. And so who are you going to put in charge of your affairs? And like I said before, this doesn't apply only to millionaires. It can apply to thousandaires too. That's a term I made up and coined, and that means anybody with less than $1 million is a thousandaire. You might have thousands in the bank, or tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands. You need to do planning too, because when you have less, every dollar matters more. And so you can't just throw it out the window or flush it down the toilet, because it means every dollar means more. And so, by the way, this lawsuit is going to be expensive for everybody to deal with, hiring lawyers and accountants and advisors to figure out whether the son that was handling operations, David Hermann, did anything wrong. At this point, they're only allegations. And of course, you have to have evidence and witnesses in court. And so that's going to be more people that are dragged into this saga. So the stepmother, Karen, alleges that David has failed to live up to his father's expectations and the example set by Mr. Hermann. Says under David's leadership, various businesses, including Grady's Barbecue and the bowling ball manufacturing assets, had to be sold due to David's mismanagement of the assets. So that's not me saying that. I'm quoting from the newspaper article, which was quoting from the lawsuit. These are just allegations at this point. And David didn't respond to messages left by the San Antonio Express News. And so the stepmother and the step brothers and sisters want the court to appoint somebody other than David to wind up the affairs of some of the family businesses. And so Ron Hermann, the patriarch of the family, is not a party to the lawsuit. And his 3 daughters from his first marriage aren't parties to the lawsuit, but their rights might be affected by the case. So I'm trying to help you just see through a real-world example what can happen with the affairs of somebody that's older or becoming disabled. And so it matters who you appoint to be your agent under power of attorney or successor trustee, because those are positions that can start taking action while you're alive. Or maybe David's acting as the manager of the family limited partnership. I'm not too sure about that. At some point, Ron Hermann, who's 90, gave up control for the family businesses, collectively known in the complaint as Hermann Enterprises, to David Hermann. And so he's supposed to be managing the assets, the lawsuit alleges, in a way that's fair for the second wife and all of the kids. So we'll see what happens. What I could glean from this article is that some of the goals that Ron Hermann may have had in mind when he was building up the assets and was for the next generation to make wise acquisitions and investments and to be fair and honest with all of the family. And so we're going to have to take a break. And after the break, I'm going to be talking about what lessons can we learn from Ron Hermann's family saga that's being played out in the San Antonio Express News and other media outlets, and in the new business court that's been established. What can we learn as people that might not be millionaires? What can we learn as thousandaires, those of us who have less than $1 million? Either that's thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. If it's less than $1 million, you're known as a thousandaire in my book. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law Radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the Ten Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.